the whole Brock Purdy thing is confusing to me. And I'm sure there's probably some Niners fans going, really? Like, this is okay, great.
Yeah.
Do you think Brock is the solution? And when did you realize that he could play at this efficient of a level?
I think he's the solution on this team uh, under his current contract. Like, remember 10 years ago when the Seahawks really had a juggernaut, that Legion of Boom team, and they went to back-to-back Super Bowls and really should have won back-to-back, but Russell Wilson threw that interception at the end. He was perfect for that team. He was cheap. He was young. He was mobile. He was a playmaker. And, Marshawn Lynch was really the engine of that offense. I feel like Brock Purdy's in the same position right now. If he keeps this up, one day he'll be making $50, $60 million a year. And I don't know if he'll be like able to produce at that level, but he's making $900,000 a year right now. And he's playing MVP level quarterback. So that's like the biggest cheat code in sports. Yeah. And it's like, you could look at him and say, well, he only does this, or he dinks and dunks, or he's in it. But it's like, it's every week. It's every week. And it's at a certain point, you just have to say it's not a fluke. Maybe other quarterbacks don't get it done like he does. And maybe he's not your typical quarterback, but it's so consistent. It's kind of like a baseball player who doesn't make hard contact, but is always getting on base with a bloop hit or a CNI single. And it's like, man, if he could do it every year, it's not a flick. Kind of like Jeter was that way. If you remember Jeter. Like, Jeter didn't really hit the ball that hard. If you remember Jeter,
think I'm like 12?
If you're in your 30s and you remember Derek Jeter, like, he didn't hit the ball that hard. He didn't have power. He was a slap hitter, but he worked forever. I mean, I'm just saying. Yeah. Kind of like that.
Well, if Brock Purdy makes 50 or 60 million bucks someday, he's not going to be Mr. Irrelevant anymore. I mean, it is just amazing to me looking at this guy going, I don't necessarily get it, but I'm not going to hate on a guy for having success. It's pretty remarkable to me that he's been able to do it the way he has. Let's go to McCaffrey's for a second. I mean, you've obviously had a chance to see him up close and personal a lot. When he's at his absolute best, what do you think that looks like?
Well, he can do everything, but in terms of his mentality, he reminds me of Frank Gore. Like the chip on his shoulder, like, I'm the best and people still don't give me the credit I deserve. Like, I should be all pro every year. I should have been the number one pick in like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And it's fun to watch. Like, he runs really hard. He looks like a scat back. Like, he looks like Reggie Bush from back in the day, but he's not. Like, he runs between the tackles. He finishes runs. He's physical. He's violent. Does everything. He's quick. I'm about to sneeze.
Bless you.
He's a joy to watch. You think of him as like, man, he can run outside, he can catch passes, but he wants to prove that he's the toughest bell cow in the league. And so he's leading the league in touches. And like, a little topic around the Niners is, well, 5-0, but you're really overusing Christian McCaffrey, and maybe you should save him for the playoffs, because God forbid you get him hurt now. He's like getting 25 touches a game. And I think that's a fair thing to say, because it's like, why would coaches willingly do that? But the deal is that Christian McCaffrey won't come off the field. They'll be like, hey, Christian, you're out. And he'll be like, no. Or like Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason will try to come on the field and be like, and he's like, so he's at that level where he can sort of like do whatever he wants, which is fine. But he's
not a whole lot of
jeopardizing the Niners. No, like not many. And he's kind of jeopardizing the Niners season for his own personal goals. But hopefully he can keep it. He had a season a few years ago where he had like 400 something touches. So it can be done.
Yeah.
He's a tough guy.
I just can't quite identify with all of that. Like, I'm so good that I'm going to tell my coaches, like, yeah, actually, I'm not coming out. I know you want to sub here, but I'm not tapping my helmet. I'm good.
Dude, it's October, man. Come on. Trust your coaches. Respect your coaches. Yeah.
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 On the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you've obviously got stars, in the front. I guess it's a similar question to what you asked me, but I'm more directing you toward the secondary. I feel like if San Francisco is going to win the Super Bowl, they need the secondary to uphold their end of the bargain. So the question is, do you think long-term that they can?
I think it's an underrated secondary. Like Trevarius Ward, I don't think he's been to a Pro Bowl, but he's a really, really good cornerback. And then opposite him, Diamador Lenore has been just as good, if not better. Just say just as good as Trevarius Ward this season. He finished last season strong. He was great in the playoffs.
Okay.
So, I mean, you have two quality corners. Safeties, I think, are quality too. Like Tashawn Gibson has he played for the Browns? He's played for every team.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, he finds a way to intercept 5 passes a year, doesn't give up big plays, solid as they come. And then Talanoa Hufunga's an all-pro. I mean, you should target the nickelback, Isaiah Oliver. But even him, I mean, he's not a bad player. He's just not as good as the other one. I mean, they're giving up 13 points per game. It's rough. It's hard to say what to do. Most teams are just throwing really quick passes and dinking and dunking, and that's not getting it done because the Niners offense is scoring a lot of points. So it's a tough one.
It is. It's definitely a tough matchup. So there's obviously a lot of reason to have optimism. I think even coming into the season, there were a lot of folks that felt like this 49ers team was going to be legit. Are you more impressed with what you've seen from the offense or the defense this year, or the special teams? I mean, what part of this group has actually maybe taken you by surprise a little bit in the way that they've performed?
Well, the offense is getting all the headlines because Brock Purdy's such a great story, and Christian McCaffrey's a great player, and Kyle Shanahan's an offensive coach, but it's kind of just picking up where it left off last year. If you were watching last year, the offense was doing this with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey up until the playoffs.
Right.
So I mean, it's remarkable that Brock Purdy could do this coming off a big elbow surgery. But the defense is interesting because DeMeco Ryans is gone. He was the coordinator. He's the head coach of the Houston Texans now, and the Niners hired Steve Wilks, who did he work for the Browns? Maybe not. Sorry, everyone worked for the Browns at some point.
I don't think so.
Anyway, Steve Wilks is here, and it was tough. Is like they asked him to basically run their system. They're like, we like the wide nine. We have our wide nine D-line coach, Chris Kasarik. You come here and figure out what we do and learn what we do, and then call your games. And he's been great. He's adopted the wide nine. He has improved the defense. Like, it was the number 1 defense in the league last year, and they were very vulnerable to mobile quarterbacks. Every time they lost last year, it was a quarterback who could move. They would give up scramble lanes left and right, and they would give up big plays down the field. Now they haven't given up big plays down the field yet, and they don't give up many runs to quarterbacks anymore. Like, they fixed their 2 biggest Achilles heels on the defense, and Steve Wilks did it before Halloween. I mean,
Wilks was our defensive coordinator a couple of years ago. I had to
fair enough.
It was 2019.
Steve Wilks.
Yeah,
everyone goes through Cleveland, man. It's just something about it.
It does kind of feel that way.
Yeah. He's doing great. He's in the running for coordinator of the year, I think, along with Jim Schwartz. Should be.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if it worked out that way. That's for sure. I guess the last thing I want to ask is just about like obstacles. You know, like what do you think the biggest hurdle is for this team here moving forward?
It's 2 things. Well, it's a few things. I think it all comes back to Kyle Shanahan. Like, he has some patterns and some skeletons in his closet. He has a tough time keeping his quarterback and running back healthy. So it's been 5 weeks. So far, so good. That's great. But he needs to do it for like another 15. And the way he's using little Christian McCaffrey, and I don't know. We'll see. And then there's other thing about Kyle Shanahan is like, he's great when things are going well. September, October, regular season. When he gets to the biggest game of the season, like 3 or 4 times, he's completely blown it. Completely. 28-3 in the second half, lost. 20-10 in the fourth quarter, lost. Last 2 NFC championship games. I mean, he needs to show that he isn't a choker, straight up. Because, I mean, he seems like the moment gets too big for him sometimes. Other than that, it seems like their year, man. It seems like they're head and shoulders the best team in the league. And that really the only thing that can derail them is like themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you don't even feel necessarily like Kansas City or Miami or Philadelphia could knock them out.
I don't know that Miami could. I mean, they played Miami last year and destroyed them, but I mean, the NFL sort of does come down to that. Like, Brock Purdy is good enough to beat most teams, but is he good enough to beat Mahomes? Would you really put money on the Niners in the Super Bowl against Mahomes? I don't know about that. I don't know. And then the Eagles, like, I mean, they haven't been as dominant as the Niners through 5 weeks, but there's time, and they're a tough matchup for the Niners because they win the trenches on both sides of the ball, and that's a good way to win games. I mean, it's tough to win when you're getting blown up. Like, that's why the Niners lost the NFC Championship game. It wasn't just Brock Purdy who got hurt; it was his backup too, Josh Johnson. And now, like, Jalen Carter, he looks like, my God, he looks like young Ndamukong Suh, but better.
Yeah,
he's a freak. I'm not. Still, though, I feel like the Niners can beat him. You can beat anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. And I guess I'm more than anything, man, I'm just bummed that the Browns are kind of coming into this game, somewhat feeling like there's one hand tied behind their back. They would never say that. It's not going to show up in an effort level. They're going to go out and play hard, and it's the NFL, and you might win. But I know fans are like, God, I would love to see what this team could do if we had full strength, because losing Nick Chubb changed the outlook of the season, in my opinion. It just stinks. So I would love to see what this team could do against San Francisco if it was at full strength, but we'll see if this current version of the Browns can get it done on Sunday.
I don't think they can, Brendan.
I wouldn't put money on it.